Support for your public radio station comes from our members and from Bob Johnson Auto Group, proud supporter of Connections with Evan Dawson. Believing an informed public makes for a stronger community. BobJohnsonAutoGroup.com.
From WXXI News, this is Connections. I'm Evan Dawson. Well, our connection this hour was made in childhood bedrooms across the country. In Westlake, Ohio, in the bedroom that I shared with my twin brother, you might find G.I. Joes, certainly Transformers, Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, the plastic toys that defined a generation's childhood.
And here in New York, my childhood bedroom had an entire corner of pink-hued rubber and plastic-scented toys. From waist-high houses and convertible cars to Velcro fastening outfits and tiny shoes that my little brother tried to eat, you could find the fruits of my allowance dollars in the Barbie world. But all this plastic didn't seem like a problem when we were kids, right?
I guess not.
Younger generations,
You're not thinking about that.
No, and now it's like plastic is everywhere, and younger generations are living in a different world. So this was kind of part of our thinking.
And there you go. The average brain contains about 7 grams of microplastics, equivalent to the weight of a plastic teaspoon, according to a study published in February of the February edition of Nature Medicine. And this month, City Magazine has its first ever Earth issue. E-waste, recycled restaurant buildings, to Bitcoin mining and the cost of it, community gardening, and more. This April edition explores practical, local ways we can maybe take better care of ourselves, hopefully the planet. And Leah Stacy, the editor of City Magazine, is co-hosting with me this hour. Going to steer the ship here.
Yeah, we're going to talk about this issue and the ways our region is working toward a more sustainable future, which we explored, I think, in a lot of interesting ways in this issue. And I'm going to welcome our guests, two people who worked very hard on this issue. Roberto Felipe Lagares, multimedia reporter for City Magazine.
Hello.
Hey, Berto.
Hello. This is his favorite day of the month.
Why is that?
Because
coming on the show?
Yeah.
Love it.
All right.
Yeah.
Love it. It's great.
When
Love
I
being
said you're going from 30 minutes to an hour, he was like, at any time.
here.
I like it.
He loves being on the
2
show.
hours.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Somebody tell Pat he's going to be on the next hour. I need you to research gateways now.
Doing it.
And Alyssa Coe, this is your first time on Connections.
Yeah, it is.
Alyssa is our intern this semester, and she is doing incredible work on every issue. This is the third issue that you've fully worked on, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. It's
And
going by fast.
I mean, I
this semester.
learned 3 minutes ago that Alyssa is a beatboxer.
Yeah,
That's a real thing?
It is, yeah. Well, so I guess it kind of is obvious that since I'm an intern here, I'm still in college. Throughout my entire college career, when I wasn't stuck in the basement of the student center working for our campus paper, the Campus Times, over at the University of Rochester, I actually ran an a cappella group there called Vocal Point, and through them, I learned how to beatbox, and I actually just taught some people how to do so this morning.
Leah, do you mind if we just do the first half hour on beatboxing?
No, please.
Yeah, no,
How do you...
I'll peek the mic.
How do you first find out that you can even do that?
The answer is people tell you, hey, can you do this? And you go, how do I do that? And then they say, figure it out. And I feel like there's a very accurate through line of what it's like to be thrown into beatboxing as there is being thrown into every new beat that I do here at City and journalism in general.
Oh, that was a nice little tie-in.
Nice.
We didn't even prompt her on that one.
Golden.
I was watching that happen. I was like, damn.
The gears are turning. The gears are turning.
Leah and I looked at each other like, she's got it.
Yeah.
That's very, very good. Well, on a future edition, maybe a little beatboxing could be in order. But
Yeah.
okay.
I'm in.
I find that very, very fun. Okay.
For festivals.
I love that. Hey, there's all kinds of artistic endeavors that City's going to cover. I love the idea, by the way, that you're starting this issue with a couple of things that I want to ask you about before we talk to our colleagues, Leah. First of all, in your editor letter here, you were pretty clear that this is an issue that, while is obviously concerned and targeted, is not intended to be preachy or kind of talking down. And that distinction matters, I think. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's always that line, right? That when you're gonna tackle something, and City, we're so arts and culture focused. We have been for a few years now, but we've been wanting to bring in more long form, more newsy leaning arts and culture content. And so, the past 2 April issues have been cannabis themed, And this year we said, okay, nothing has changed in such a great amount in that industry that we feel it's warranting a whole issue. And so we were like, let's pivot. And I said, let's try a climate issue. It started as a climate issue, I should say. And then at one point, I think it was the planet issue. And I was like, but which planet? And I mean, it just, yeah. And so it became the Earth issue through various factors. You know, it's always based on pitches from both the staff and the freelance team, and also kind of what we see emerging in the region at the time when we start working on the magazine. So it is the Earth issue. Kind of nice. Earth Day is coming up, right? It's this month. And I think a lot of the stuff in these pages is on our minds. You know, some of this factors into the economy and how things are going there. We have a piece that Alyssa worked on, and she'll talk about that in a little bit. And then just general lifestyle things. Berto had a really interesting photo essay, which he will talk about. And then we're a big secondhand city. And by that, I mean we have a lot of secondhand stores, whether it's the Rehouse, where you can find parts to fix your actual house and furnishings that have come from other places, or whether you're going thrifting, whether that's the bins at Goodwill or the Lucky Flea Market or Staple on University Ave. And so one of our newer freelancers, 10, is going to chat with us a bit later in the show. And they worked on a piece about secondhand shops and some of the newer ones that are open. So there are so many practical ways to take better care of the only Earth that we know. And so we try to really focus on those things. And again, stay away from being like, here's what you're doing wrong. I need you to change your whole life.
Because that messaging lands a little different.
Yeah, people don't love that. I mean, I don't love that, right? Do you?
You know, I'm human, but that can land a little clunkily for sure.
Yeah.
I also like this idea of asking what the plastic was in our lives. And I was just thinking about that this morning. It's like, well, like Transformers for me, for sure.
Yeah.
Like the death of Optimus Prime was like a terrible thing in that first Transformers movie. Dating myself a little as a late Gen Xer. And you know, G.I. Joe. I mean, I guess there was some. I think my brother had more of that than I did. But plastic is everywhere. That little study that City references, like, a teaspoon of plastic in your brain.
It inspired so many other articles too. I remember reading it. I don't know who did the first article I read, and then I always go. I'm sure you do this too. You go back to the source, and you're like, oof. Well, and then some people were like promoting it, and they were like, oh, it's a teaspoonful of plastic. No, it's like the weight of a plastic teaspoon, which is equally as scary, but a different fact, right? It's not like the Mary Poppins like teaspoon of plastic. And when I was writing my editor's letter, I was thinking about not only Barbies, but also like the bag of bags that everyone's family has or had. Like the bag of plastic bags. Like we all grew up with this, right? And now my mom a couple of weeks ago like handed me a plastic bag to like put something in after I was leaving her house, and I was like, "Where'd you get this?"
Like it looked like a relic, right?
There's like a plastic bag black market that I don't know about. She's like, I ordered something and they
cat
used
owners. Yeah,
well, and I am a cat owner, and I was like, I need to know where these are coming from. Like, where's the stash? But, that's, like, I think a really great indication of how our, like, outlook toward plastic and how we have come together as communities and, like, tried to take these better steps and easier steps. And we joke about it, but I have my reusable grocery bags in my car all the time. Mm-hmm. I don't always remember to bring them in the store with me. And then I'm, the person
buying
with
the
paper bag that's, like, ripping on the way out. Because I'm like, I'm only going to get one. I'm going to put everything in it. And then,
Same.
Yeah. Do you also try to take the full trip with all the stuff from your car to your front door, and you're like, I'm not going back to the car?
No, I'm usually smart enough to know that that's going to create more work.
Oh, yeah, no, I every time. I'm like, there's a reason we build muscle, and this is part of it.
So this is what I really appreciate about the issue, though. It takes parts of our lives and puts our attention in a lot of different directions, and we're going to talk this hour about how City has done that with this issue. Are you saying, by the way, let's see here, a spoonful of plastic makes the climate go down? Is that what the song was?
I think that's the song now. Thank you so much for singing. Alyssa, could you beatbox
No.
that?
There we go. Now we're talking.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, I'm just the intern. Whatever how high?
Well, I mean, so let's talk a little bit about some of the specifics here. So we're going to work throughout the issue this hour, but I certainly encourage, as I always do, listeners and viewers, if you're watching on YouTube, on the WXXI News YouTube channel, pick up the city issue, the Earth issue. Here it is. There it is. It feels very environmental.
Splendid cover design by Jacob Walsh.
Yeah, beautiful as always.
Yeah.
And you want to talk a little bit about what Alyssa was writing about here?
Yeah, well, I want her to talk about it.
Oh, that's why she's here.
So your big piece was Taproot Collective, and this was something you completely pitched. So take it away.
Yeah. I guess it's helpful to have like a little bit of an understanding as to kind of like how the pitch process works. As someone who just started here a couple months ago,
Yeah.
It was something that was completely foreign to me as a college student. The university I go to doesn't have a journalism department, so I was super flying blind. What's really nice about the pitch process is, so Leah sends out a form for anyone who's interested in contributing to the edition to fill out with their ideas on what would fit really nicely into the overarching theme that they have going on. And I was actually really lucky. This issue was perfectly attuned to my interests and the way that I grew up. When I was growing up, my parents got divorced, and my mom lived with some family friends who actually, like the matriarch of the household, ran the recycling division of the local school system that I was a part of. And so I grew up with like recycling bins on recycling bins and a compost, and we almost never threw anything away, and everything was recycled. And so when I came to college, one of the first things that I did was join like our environmental sustainability group that we have for first years. Through that, I learned about the program Urban Fellows, which is something that the University of Rochester does to give students access to basically like programs in the Rochester area that are working towards doing support in a sustainable way. And the Taproot Collective was one of the programs that I knew interfaced with the Urban Fellows, and so that's how I found out about them, was through there. I had a friend who interned with them, I believe, a summer prior. I had some friends who were at like Westside Farmers Market on Genesee Street, and so getting to know the university from a sustainable front helped me to learn about the Rochester community as one of the first things that I got to do when I first stepped on campus. I'm originally from Albany, and so I think there's something to like the community building that comes from people who are really sustainably oriented that, for lack of a better word, or maybe this is a good word, like roots our community so much more deeply in each other. So when it comes to Taproot, the first person that I turned to was Madison Zhang, who's a current student at the university and interned with Taproot this past summer, helped basically like conduct a survey of all of the community gardens that are in the city of Rochester, which there are like way, way more than you would have thought.
Yeah.
So she went out like every morning and they have like a community garden themselves, Taproot does, right near the public market. So she would help out at that garden in the morning and then go out and survey, like actually like measuring plots of land, taking a look at like the composition of what it was that they were growing, how they were doing so, doing surveys and talking to people who are garden owners. And they're working on an aggregate survey that's going to get pushed out sometime this summer, which is really exciting. Mm-hmm. The main part about Taproot, though, which is like the focus of the article, as you'll know when you read it and pick it up at all of the locations that we've delivered to. I did some of those deliveries. Please go pick them up. Is they have this really big focus on giving youth in the Rochester area leadership opportunities, which is so, so crucial, especially when we're thinking about like this is the climate and the world that these kids are going to inherit, like giving them the tools to be able to understand how food is produced, especially in like the food desert-ish area that we live in, is so incredibly important to understanding the importance of what it is that you consume, how you consume it, where it's coming from, and also just like the leadership skills that come with learning how to run a garden and oversee and manage projects is like a really big thing that they instill in these high school students. It's part of like the summer youth employment program through the city of Rochester is what Taproot works with. And it gives all of these students like not only like financial incentive to be doing stuff that's really good for our surrounding community, but a place to be learning and growing and learning how to not hate tomatoes, for example.
And appreciating, understanding how food is grown and where it comes from. We're pretty far away from that as a collective, as a society. But I mean, some of us grew up closer to food than others. I mean, I think. Probably.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I grew up surrounded by fields on every side except for where the road was.
Yeah. What about you, Berto?
I grew up downtown, but now I live by the fields. So
There you go.
You kind of live in my old town.
yeah.
Yeah, I
basically.
mean, I
swap places.
I grew up in a very suburban setting, and at this point, it feels cliche to say what I'm about to say, but like, at what point does a seminal piece of literature go from like a hot new thing to like kind of played or even cliche, or like now it's like a legacy piece? So years ago when I read Michael Pollan's Omnivore's Dilemma, sorry, see, I told you.
No, but I would be surprised if either of them have read it.
Okay.
Because I think it's more our generation.
I have
Okay.
no idea what you're talking about.
All
I've only
right.
heard of it.
to be
Okay.
honest
There you
with
go.
So I mean,
Everything old is new again.
there's very few books that have come out in my lifetime that have moved the culture that much.
Yeah.
And this is one of them.
Yeah.
And one of the insights that Michael Pollan has, spending all this time on these farms and seeing how pigs are raised and how cows are raised, and then having to participate in slaughter, is at one point he asked himself, if I'm willing to eat this animal, should I be willing to have to slaughter it? Like, if I'm so repelled by the idea, does that say something to me, or am I too insulated from what food is about? Now that's the meat side of it, obviously, but just in general, we're pretty separated from food, and we're growing up without that connection. What I think is really lovely about a piece like this and an effort like this is it's about connecting, I think, people, kids, students, to how food is grown, and that has a lot of different benefits. You appreciate it more when you eat. You appreciate it more when you're connected to nature. You appreciate what climate is doing. I mean, I think it's a lot of things. And so, for me, I went back to Omnivore's Dilemma, which is amazing that
Yeah.
like people are like, what book?
It's like part of the beginning of the whole farm to table movement.
Yeah.
I just like reading these pieces also. I just, when you can like, you're feeling something so strongly, you can almost like, I don't know, just like the sense of putting your hands in dirt.
Yeah.
Nothing compares to that, especially when you're doing it in a way that you're going to produce something. I remember like gardening with my mom, even if it was just flowers. Like there's something so like almost primal in us that like we want to do that. We want to be in the dirt. We want to create things from the earth. I think we were meant to do that.
Yeah. And the cool thing about Taproot is I think it dispels the idea that depending on where you are, that maybe you can or maybe you can't. I mean, I think, I mean, you agree with that?
Yeah, actually, I was learning a lot. So I went and talked to like some of the like executives at Taproot. So Nathaniel Mish is like the executive director there, and then Asimi Coleman like helps run their youth programming. And the two of them, I went to their actual space, like at the garden that they work at, and I was talking to the two of them, and I was like, oh, you guys are probably in your off season right now, like probably just mainly doing administrative work and leadership training. And they were very clear with me in establishing, no, the production process for food and also for gardening in particular, like not only is it an all year thing, but doing the support on the back end to be educating students on how to properly do so, like is what fills up all of the winter. And so in fact, almost there's like more work that goes into like that side of things and the actual like cultivation and management that happens in what we think of as like our growing season. So even here in Rochester, where it's pretty cold most of the time, people always have to be like vigilant and conscientious, especially with the weather that we have.
Yeah. Yeah. Great work on this. I can see why you're so popular in the city office already.
Oh, I'm just learning that now. It's so exciting.
It's really great. You know, part of the funny thing about Pollan's book is he ends up writing, I think it was kind of a sequel, although Megan Mack will correct me on this. The book that Michael Pollan wrote after Omnivore's Dilemma, I don't remember what it was called, but he's doing this media tour, and he goes, I'm going to like really blow my chances of selling a lot of books here, but I think I can sum up the book in 3 sentences and 7 words, which is eat food, period. Not too much, period. Mostly plants, period. It's like that's the whole book. But all these years later, mostly plants it feels far away, and then you start to get your hands in the dirt, and you start to feel like, oh, we do have a shorter growing season, but we can do it. It takes a lot of knowledge and skill, but and climate is making it more difficult because it's more volatile. We're getting bud break earlier in the Finger Lakes with vines. We're getting, apple orchards it's a real struggle because of hail and other issues that come. But I mean, I just really love this piece. It made my brain go in a lot of different directions. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah, so that's one of the pieces in City. And Leah, before we jump into bringing our next guest, Ten's going to be with us, and we're going to talk about the karmic cycle of clothing coming up here. Clothing and climate. I would say 10 years ago there was less talk about that. I think there's a lot
for
more
sure.
now. I think there's a lot more now.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there's this dichotomy of people who really like to spend a lot on clothing and shoes, but then they're like these climate conscious folks, and it does not line up. Because if you really dig into, and I love this stat that 10 put in their lead saying it takes 2,000 gallons of water to produce a single pair of jeans.
Ugh.
And you think
I'm
about
wearing
some
a pair
of
of
the
jeans right now.
yeah, no,
I feel like I'm sitting on 2,000 gallons of water. It's terrible. Thank you for that.
that mental image was a lot for me. I like glitched. But I think again, like we're such a great secondhand city, and that is also just a great phrase. I wish I'd thought of that sooner. But we have just every opportunity for you to go and to shop at thrift stores, secondhand stores. And also a lot of these stores are doing consignment, which is where you can take your clothes and they will give you a percentage of the sales. So it's sustainable in more than one way, right? Like you can make a little side business from this. I've talked about this before. I'm an avid Poshmark user. And I, when you take clothes and just donate them, that's one thing. But when you can also give back to the secondhand, like you become almost like a tiny business owner. I love that part of it. I think it's great. And we have a lot of that going on. The Op Shop, same thing. Like you walk through the Op Shop, which is over near Ugly Duck, and the different rooms have different like booths, quote unquote, and they're different sellers. So when 10 pitched this story, I was like, this is great. We've had this one on our radar. And actually, Berto and I had gone to, with Katie Epner, we had gone to Wear.
Yep.
Like the week before.
Yep. Got my favorite sweatshirt from there.
It was
I almost
like
wore it today. Completely forgot.
Wasn't it like a Friday? It was like it was like a snowstorm.
Yeah.
We like drove there in a snowstorm, and we're like, yeah, let's go check out this store. And we just like we're like the only 3 people in there.
Yep. And it was
tried
great.
out a bunch of clothes. It was super fun. Yeah.
So let's bring in 10. They're here. 10 Gardner-Well on the line. 10 Gardner, contributor to City Magazine. Hey, 10.
Hi.
Thanks for being with us. And you want to say hello, Leah Stacy, to Jensen?
Hi, 10. Hi, Jensen.
Hi, Leah. Hi.
Thank you for being here.
Jensen Ruggiero is the owner of, I'm going to say Kayaks. That's a secondhand clothing store in Rochester.
I don't know how to say it. I was going to
Yes.
ask.
Yep, Kayaks is right.
All
It
right.
stands for Kid in a Kitschy Shop.
Oh, that's cute.
Kitschy shop. I love
that.
Yeah, that's great. And Berto, your photography here, everything just pops off the page and everywhere you went with this.
I try.
Oh, no, I'm
just
not
kidding.
crediting
Just
you. I'm
kidding.
crediting the
Just kidding.
material.
It's
Like
not
these
me.
places
It's
are
not
fun.
me.
This is why he likes coming on here.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's a lot of great stuff here. Berto should have worn that sweatshirt. But I want to start by asking. Well, I'll ask you, 10, if you want to just describe the piece a little bit, and then I'm really curious to talk about some of the themes that you wrote about with Jensen. But tell us about the piece, 10.
Yeah, so, I mean, like Leah said, we are a big secondhand city, and I'm an avid thrifter. And I've been wanting to write for City for a while, and this is something that I have interest in as a person who lives on the planet. I'm interested in continuing to live on the planet. And so I just, I went around to a couple local thrift shops, smaller shops, newer shops that people might not already know about, like Little Shop of Hoarders and Op Shop, they're huge. So I wanted to highlight small businesses, and I actually went to high school with Jensen, and so I wanted to plug her, and yeah, this has been an incredible experience.
Jensen, tell us about how you do what you do at Kayaks.
Yeah, so at Kayaks, I kind of source everything by hand from various estate sales, side of the road garage sales, thrift stores,
and I display it kind of in a way that's less overwhelming than a general thrift store. So it's more of a boutique setting, if you will. And I do a mix of homewares and clothing. And I also offer a rotating monthly vendor spot to other smaller sellers in the city who don't yet have their own space or don't have the capacity to run their own, full brick and mortar shop, but want to get their name out there a little more. So I offer a corner in the shop that changes every month, where they can sell their pieces in my shop.
And if I could ask both of you about something that Ten writes, I'm going to quote Ten's piece, where Ten says, "With consistent action, individual consumers can push the market toward more sustainable practices." The reason I want to key in on this is, again, so many of these pieces have my brain going in all these different directions. And years ago, I was watching the 60 Minutes piece on plastic, and they were talking about the advertising that the big cola companies do. And so a lot of the times, plastic containers are used because they're cheaper and they're easy for companies. And so they started this campaign, the big companies, the big corporations years ago, and they would tell you, recycle, you can make the world better. And putting it on the individual, like, hey, we're going to make something really kind of crappy, but you can take it to a recycler, and that at least helps a little, so it's on you. And part of the pushback over years was like, wait a second, don't put this on the individuals. This is a problem at the top. You don't have to do it this way. And so I was thinking about that. I was thinking about what Enid Cardinal said on this program years ago. Enid was talking about what individuals can do with consumption and waste. And I asked the same kind of question. And Enid said, absolutely, this is a top-down problem, but don't underestimate the power of people through individual action that becomes a cultural change to put pressure upward. So, I've always had that push-pull question on who do you blame when things kind of get out of control or if there's harm. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm going to start with 10 because, when you think about individual action versus the responsibility of kind of the big economic powers, how do you kind of square all that up, and how do you think about that in regards to clothing?
Yeah, I actually was kind of grappling with that while I was writing the piece. 800 words isn't enough space to really tackle the whole issue. But I think it is really important as just a person existing in this economy and on this planet to have hope and have belief that you can make a difference. I'm not the CEO of Coca-Cola. I'm not the CEO of Amazon, but I can do the little things that I can do, instead of taking the nihilistic view of, well, the world's on fire, so why would I recycle? Yep. It's the world's on fire, so what can I do to help?
And let me ask Jensen about that very idea. Go ahead, Jensen.
Yeah, I love what Ten said there, too. And bouncing off of what you said, Evan, it does start here. It starts with us, like Ten said, we're not the CEOs of Coca-Cola, Amazon, any of these big corporation names. But what we can do is we can stop purchasing from them, and we can start purchasing from our smaller local businesses and supporting within our communities. And something I really focus on in my shop is I also accept donations to try and be like a middleman before, Goodwill or Salvation Army, because they are just so overwhelmed with product that we can keep those special pieces of clothing that you've had for years in our communities, and they can be passed to your neighbor.
Well, I think I'm probably the oldest person on this program today. I don't always feel like my actions are reflecting what I want my values to be, but I'm more conscious of it than ever. When I was Alyssa's age, I was never thinking about this. So Alyssa, when you're thinking about clothing, are you thinking more about, where it came from and what that process was like? Is that on your mind?
Yeah, I actually, my mom was a big, Salvation Army, Goodwill person. I grew up, not super financially stable. And so I think in a way it's much easier to be, conscious of your consumption because you have to be. And so that was instilled in me in that way from a financial standpoint. But I do have this, kind of mantra that I think about all the time, which is cost per use. And so going back to what Leah was talking about people getting really expensive articles of clothing, in some ways there are pros to, if you have a couple of staples, as long as they're really good quality, spending the money because the cost per use goes down the more you wear it. And if you're getting something that's higher quality, that cost inevitably like pays off in the fact that you don't have to be trashing it at the end of the season in the way that a lot of our fast fashion ends up going. I also grew up going to like clothing swaps a lot, which
Those
is
are so fun.
such a blast.
Yeah.
It's like a big community builder as well. So like once or twice a year, my mom and all of her friends would meet up and swap clothes. And, you know, a lot of people are different sizes, but people would like try stuff on and like give each other style advice. And it was a way for me to connect with people that honestly I had like, you know, decades of life experience difference from, but we could all come together in this way to support each other, support our communities, keep clothing cycling within our communities, and also be more sustainably minded.
Oh, that's,
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
How much are you now thinking about sourcing and all of those questions, Leah?
Clothing wise?
Yeah.
So my sister and I have been thrifting since we were in high school. We also grew up, I mean, I have 4 siblings. So hand-me-downs, secondhand clothing, like that, it was just part of it, man. I think I was like in high school before I bought my first like designer jeans. And back then it was probably like American Eagle or something. You know, I was just like trying to impress
Is that
someone.
still a thing? I don't think it is it?
Oh.
Is there still an American Eagle?
They're in the mall.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
They are?
Yeah, it's-
And they also are trying to
Forever 21's
they're
gone
trying
now.
to
They're
retarget
leaving.
the millennials too. They're trying to bring us back. That's like a different. That's a whole show.
Oh, yeah.
American Eagle, Abercrombie. We're not gonna get into
All
that.
the
Gets
old
deep.
school brands.
Yeah.
Gets real deep.
What's going on
They're-
with them? Berto, tell me about this sweatshirt. I mean, clearly your brain was turned off this morning. That's what you should be wearing.
Yeah, I should have been. It's just, you know, I feel like another piece that like people sometimes touch on is like the quality piece too. Like, I mean, fast fashion, like you said, just kind of falls apart. And then you look at, and like almost all my favorite pieces in my closet are all like thrifted. Like my favorite pair of jeans, Goodwill. My favorite sweatshirt was Wear to Wear. Like I have this Abercrombie like flannel that is a quality that I would not like. The label is kind of misleading because I'm like, was Abercrombie really doing this back in the day? Like this
It's
is
an
kinda
old
nice.
company.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I mean it's nice, and but yeah, like all my favorite pieces, none of them are from like when I'm cashing out in the mall. So I just stopped shopping there, and I stopped shopping online if I can help it. Like I like to go thrift shopping and find my pieces, and yeah, I mean it's the quality just holds up better and it just looks better. I don't know.
Yeah.
To Berto's point there, 10, I'm reading your piece here. You talked to Nick Schroeder from Wear to Wear, who said, if you treat something well, whether it is silk, wool, or cotton, it'll last forever. If you buy quality to begin with, you won't need to continue to buy. I mean, it sounds so obvious, but it is the opposite of fast fashion, 10.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, even if you have, like, an old dress that doesn't fit you anymore, you can make a pillowcase or, like, curtains if it's good fabric, you know, instead of having to toss it because there's a million holes in it.
Jensen, do you find people who come in to kayaks, the first timers, do they buy into this idea that I might be spending more than fast fashion, but I'm starting to think about cost per use, I'm starting to think about the life of the garment?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's something I hear from a lot of consumers, and something we focus on too with sourcing at the shop is, along with, you know, secondhand vintage material, I'm mainly focusing on sourcing linens, cottons, silks, those materials that are going to last people for years. And yeah, most of the time people are coming in, you know, wearing their favorite piece, like Roberta was saying. And so it's nice to connect with people in that way and hear about other places that they've sourced these pieces from, whether it be in our city or across the states or even across the world. There's vintage sellers and secondhand sellers all over. And if you find something that's made of that quality material, you're still wearing it like 10, 15, 20 plus years later.
And Jensen, before we let you go, because we're going late here, we probably should have just done both hours with Leah today. Oh, well.
I mean, live and learn.
People
you know,
are going to have to pick up City magazines.
we just have a lot to talk about.
You do have a lot to talk about. I want to get a question from a listener who says, I'm frustrated that there are places like Lucky Flea that buy up clothes from Goodwill and then sell them at higher prices, so it locks out people on a budget from buying good items at Goodwill. What are your guests think about that? Leah, so you want to start, Leah?
This is something I've heard since the Lucky Flea started. Here's what I have to say. From a business standpoint, Go do it first. And from a secondhand standpoint, they're not buying everything. So, this has opened up, and I'm sure Jensen can agree with this has opened up a career for people. And those people who are motivated enough to get to the bins at Goodwill and to do that. And, I'm not saying I agree with all the markups, but it is business. And so there are still things at Goodwill. You can get there just like those business owners who are at the Lucky Flea are doing. And so I don't have a lot of patience for that complaint. You could do it. You can do anything. Jensen's doing it. She has a storefront.
Anything you want to add there before we let you go, Jensen?
Yes, I was going to say I would love to chime in on this because I am someone who does frequent the Goodwill bins, especially more recently in this economy, because even our Goodwills and Savers, they're racking up the prices now too. And you have to remind yourself that all of that is donated. So it first starts with them, the bigger corporations. They're marking up the prices. Then
That's a great
people
point.
are buying them. And we have to make something off of it. We have to pay for the gas it took us to get there. We're washing these items.
Yes.
They're not unwashed, dirty, dingy items. We're repairing these items, sewing up holes that may have been on a piece. But, we fix that little hole, and it's going to still last you years to come. But another thing I wanted to know about the Goodwill bins, as someone who does frequent it, if you're not familiar, the Goodwill bins is a spot where it is just, probably 9-foot-long bins in rows of 12. And I want to say there's probably at least 15 of those rows of 12 9-foot-long bins full of stuff. There's wares, and then there's also clothing. The clothing section is larger, and everything at the Goodwill bins that you buy is weighed by the pound. But they're rotating out these bins about every hour, and once those bins are rolled to the back and gone, those are going straight to the landfill. So also what I have to say to people is get to the Goodwill bins, dig around for a bit. It does take some time. So, in terms of my shop, I would upcharge for my time, gas, and what it took me to wash the items. I'm not trying to, break anyone's bank. But yeah, just get out there, go do it, go find your specific piece if you would rather do that than support the small businesses and save a little bit of time. It's really up to your preference, I guess.
Jensen, where are we going to find you at Kayaks?
We are at Kayaks today, tomorrow. Well, my sister's holding it down at the shop today. She'll be there 12 to 4, and we'll be there all weekend long.
Monroe Avenue, as Ten says, tucked inconspicuously along a busy area. 806 Monroe Avenue.
Yes.
Jensen, thanks for taking time for us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this.
And Ten, thanks for sharing more on your story. Great work there.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys reaching out.
Keep pitching, 10.
Ten Gardner, the karmic
I will.
cycle of clothing. Before we take our only break of the hour, let me read an email from David, who writes to us from Vancouver, Canada. He says, regarding water producing our clothes, he says it matters a great deal whether that water is coming from the normal water cycle or from slowly replaceable groundwater. Most cotton, fortunately, is grown from rainwater in quite wet places. That said, there's still soil depletion, pesticide contamination, and biodiversity loss to consider. So,
Great points.
complexity
Yeah.
of clothing.
Yeah.
So look what City has us doing, talking about all kinds of things. Leah Stacy is here co-hosting with me as we talk about the new City magazine.
Yeah.
And we're going to take our only break of the hour, and we're going to come right back and talk about more of these themes and share some of your feedback on the other side of this break. This is Connections. I'm Evan Dawson. Before my co-host Leah is going to talk with Berto about another great photo essay, I just want to read a little bit more email here, and this comes from Ken in East Rochester. He says, number one, being an animal lover with the finding non-plastic and its finding of plastic in the presence in our brains, I've been wondering about its health effects on our pets too. Toys, bowls, everything.
Oh, yeah.
a lot
I'm sure it's very similar.
plastic
Yeah.
encountered by animals. That's not our professional expertise. I think I would just endorse the idea that that's a concern. We should be thinking about animals too. Not just
Yeah,
human
my
beings.
cats have glass bowls
Oh.
for that reason. Yeah, and I don't they don't have one of those like weird plastic water fountains that like runs all the time. For two reasons. One, because they flip it over. And secondly, because I'm like, it's probably healthier to just like let them like have a couple drips from the sink, you know? Like
You're a sink dripper
I
cat
do-
person. I love that.
Yeah, well, they're also just annoying, and they'll follow me around until they get to do that for a little while. But then it's
Yeah.
a cat, so like they're bored after, 0.2 seconds, and they're done. They're like, one drip, I'm good.
And then they're just going to go off and brood some more.
Yeah,
Just like brooding.
for sure.
Always brooding. Dogs flip water bowls on accident because they're clumsy and very nice. Cats flip them just to annoy you.
Cats
gotta-
always have an
you gotta believe
agenda, and that's
gotta
why it's why I love them.
I know cats are great. I'm a huge cat
Yeah.
person. Don't take this the wrong way. I love cats. They have an agenda. That's right.
Yeah.
So Ken, good point. Ken also says, how can we deal with the sometimes overwhelming and futile thought that most of the plastic we've ever created is still out there somewhere, surrounding us, just in smaller pieces?
Yeah. We were talking about my
That's
hometown.
tough.
My hometown has a giant landfill in it now. And when I drive through my hometown to get to the thruway, because I grew up between Buffalo and Rochester, you drive by, we call it Mount Virgin. And I think about like just everything that's in there. And I'm like, this can't be good for even the people who live in the towns. Like it gets in everything. Like we're putting it in the earth. That's not a tomato. That's not what Taproot's doing, right? Like it's scary stuff.
Ken, thank you for that email. So tell me about this photo essay, guys.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Berto take it away. But every photo essay we have a lively discussion
Yes.
about what Berto is going to shadow essentially for the issue, and we wanted something a little more like visual, food focused. There were a lot of ideas.
There was, but ultimately, we went this route just because like the story behind it is undeniable. I think that it's very interesting.
Yeah, they're
and
doing some cool stuff.
yeah, so I got to shadow Chef Ryan Jennings, co-founder of Sweet Pea Plant-Based Kitchen. First and foremost, very talented chef. I know this firsthand because the very last photo is I ate that. I definitely ate that bowl. Yes.
He
it was
accepts
tough.
gifts. We don't condone that.
Yeah, I said he's like, I'm gonna either have to eat that later or you can have it now, and I was like, I'll take it. But anyway, yeah. So it was interesting because the conversation, was around the plant-based. I always go in with a general idea of what I want to do, but then I let the story kind of unfold and take me. So I originally was like, we're gonna talk about how like plant-based eating is like good for you in the environment, and then we kind of touched on that, but then we talked about kind of more like the industry side of it, and we kind of dove into how his position and the position of Sweet Pea was able to utilize their success in the industry to help kind of influence and help other businesses and kind of fill this gap from like a basic startup to the high-end industry, people who can create at mass scale. And he's kind of found his place where he can utilize and still successfully run this plant-based meal delivery, but also help other companies get their business off the ground and still implement like environmentally friendly practices, which is like really cool. And that includes industries that are not plant-based, like, dairy, those don't even seem to mix. But we talk about how they're going to be working with, I believe it's Spotted Duck Creamery. And those are two industries like you'd be like, oh, well, if you're plant-based, why are you working with the dairy industry? That's kind of messed up. But it's really more about like, he talks about like an 80-20 approach, right? And it's
exactly.
meeting where you're at.
Yep.
You're not going to get everybody to fully say, hey, I'm not eating meat anymore. But if you could get someone to embrace it just a little bit, and they like it, and they see, hey, it's not all just leaves and and grass, right? Like
Kale with a side of kale.
yeah, like it's actually delicious. I couldn't believe the meal I had. I was like, this is amazing. I'm surprised there's not beef in this. Like it just tastes that good.
Yeah, and when he was on the show recently, he talked about that kind of 80-20 because he was like, I'm not even vegan.
Yeah,
He's like,
that's
like,
my
exactly
favorite
what
part. Yeah.
Is this off the record, on the record? What are we doing?
Yeah, it's because I think a lot of people assume, based on what Sweet Pea is doing, that he is, and he's not.
Yeah.
But he says there's something really valuable, that incrementalism does matter.
Yes.
And sometimes in any movement, in a lot of activist circles, a lot of social change efforts, it becomes an argument about maximalism or incrementalism. And I understand why maximalists are where they are in almost any debate, because you see the world that you want to be better and you're frustrated that it's not there. And you almost want to demand, like, I know we can do this, like, get there now. But then if you shut out the incrementalists, then I think there's probably some harm there too. So
Strength in numbers kind of
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I thought that whole approach was so interesting because originally I was like kind of worried. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Is this not what I thought it was? But then I realized it's like creating good from like the inside and allowing, like, now you've got a dairy company that is going to be able to piggyback off of, an all electric fleet, compostable packaging, compostable practices, who they already have the things in place. So there's like no friction, which is like super ideal in any business. Like you tell me you've already got this figured out, I don't have to worry about it. That's great. So, you're creating change through like your position. And I thought that was super interesting. And I was able to shadow Ryan as he was making this meal, which is a meal that you can order. So also seeing how finely crafted these recipes are. He credits their size, that they're not too big, so he can do things like he has a traditional Japanese kimchi fermentation. I can't remember what he called it, but he's like, I can do things like this. We're at that size that it works, right? And so it was just so interesting to see the quality that goes into it, the investments that they've made, and
great visuals, by the way, great photos.
Thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful, well done, awesome piece, great contribution to City's Earth issue that we've been talking about. We are almost at the end here. My goodness. I want to mention a listener named Richard emailed us about an event that's happening in Geneva. Mission 04, Creating New Pathways for Living in Harmony with the Earth, is happening on Saturday, April 26th from 10 to 2. It's at the Geneva Recreation Complex. That's the ice rink on Exchange Street. They'll have vendors and organizations represented. You can learn about what they're doing. Solar energy, heat pumps, yard care practices. There's a fix-it and sewing clinic, I guess, planting for kids going on. So like a lot of cool stuff happening. It's called Mission 04, and it's happening in Geneva, one of the coolest places in the world, Saturday, April 26th, 10 to 2, at the ice rink there on Exchange Street. So really fun stuff there.
We've got a story from Geneva in the issue, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got like a third of the issue covered this hour.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk a little bit more about what we didn't get to?
I think at this point, pick up the issue.
Pick up the issue.
And of course, just a reminder, all of our stories do go online. We release one per weekday during the month that it's on stands. You can follow us on social media at Rock City Mag. We are pretty good about posting all teasers for all the stories there as well. And you can see all the good work in this. I'm really just so happy with this issue. And we had a good number of new freelancers, which is always very fun. Love to bring in new voices.
Great crew. Later this month, by the way, here on Connections, we're going to be sitting down with Mike Garland and Tina Stevens from Monroe County. That's going to happen on April 16th. We're going to talk about all things recycling, and one of the topics will be e-waste. That's featured in this month's issue in a piece by Suhasini Patni.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. We've got connections there. Every time we talk recycling, by the way, every time Mike and Tina are in, phones blow up, email blows up. People have all kinds of questions about what you can and can't recycle. So,
Yeah.
you know.
That's like really a new topic, right? Within recycling is like e-waste, especially like tech. I mean,
Yeah. That's why the Eco Park.
we never thought about that when we were kids.
No, I didn't.
Right?
I did not. Actually, usually when I was like thinking about recycling as a kid, I just thought, well, that's where plastic goes. And now you can't even recycle some plastic.
Yeah.
There's a lot of plastic you can't recycle.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
I don't think we're really sure.
You got like 3 bins to choose from.
It's a mess.
Confused.
It's a
Yeah.
mess here. Okay. I think we've just about covered it. Yeah. Where do you find City Magazine?
You can find it in
You got just enough time.
many
List
places.
every location.
List every location. Okay, here we go. No, we distribute about 40,000 magazines a month. You may notice that we are not in Wegmans. We will be back in Wegmans. We're getting a lot of questions about that.
We're in one Wegmans at least.
We're in, okay.
On
Yeah.
Calkins Road.
Yeah.
I went there.
Out in Henrietta.
Yeah.
Lovely.
So
Yes, but we are having a distribution. We're having a distribution interruption with that. So we will be back within Wegmans, and we are working on Tops. If that's where you've been getting them, hold tight. We'll have more updates soon. You can get it mailed to you, which is the way to guarantee that you get it. You can do that by sponsoring as a WXXI sponsor, or as a member, rather, or you can become a city champion on our website. Give us any amount per month, we will mail it to you.
What's the website, Leah?
rockcitymag.com. And we would love for you to become a city champion, and let's keep print media alive.
I have so much fun when you guys come in here. I really do. It's City is such a treasure for this community. Thank you, Leah Stacy, for co-hosting with me this hour.
Thank you.
Great having you. Berto, awesome man. Always great to see you. Roberto Lagares, multimedia reporter for City Magazine. Thank you, sir.
Always a pleasure.
And our thanks to Alyssa Coe, intern for City Magazine. Thanks for talking about your work, and you are welcome back anytime. Great stuff.
oh, thank you. This has been such a blast.
More connections coming up in
This program is a production of WXXI Public Radio. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of this station, its staff, management, or underwriters. The broadcast is meant for the private use of our audience. Any rebroadcast or use in another medium without expressed written consent of WXXI is strictly prohibited. Connections with Evan Dawson is available as a podcast. Just click on the Connections link at WXXInews.org.